this is a new segment we're running here. Now, I'm going to preface this before we start. It's not the right guy. You're going to find out why. It's the first time running it, so give us a break here. So we apologize for the guy. Now, personally, this was my pick. So the headline is, we didn't have an answer. And I do want to say that. So, Justin, I apologize. But if you've been watching the post-game show here throughout the entirety of this year, Justin gives out his flowers every game. And we thought it was only right here now to talk about Justin's flowers, whether he's on the show or not. Tonight, Justin's flowers, I'm going to put it in air quotes because it's fine. But Justin's flowers tonight, guys, was Jaylen Brown. Now, Jaylen Brown, this player, right, he's not necessarily going to be the player of the game, but he brings an aspect to the game that's very important and was crucial in a win or, maybe a loss, kind of like a Tommy point. However, guys, before we jump into Jaylen Brown and why he was the Justin Flowers, the first ever kind of recipient officially, I do want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this segment, Bucket Squad. Guys, Bucket Squad is the best basketball apparel in the game. They have you covered for shorts, shoes, hoodies, basketball bags, basketballs. They got it all, guys. Our link is going to be in the description. Use code Celtics Talk Weekly at checkout for 10% off every order. Guys, I'm telling you, if you're a hooper, I play basketball I try to play almost every day, every week. Bucket Squad is the best apparel in the business. Now, let's talk about Jaylen Brown here tonight, Seamus, right? 19 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists. Now, really, though, the flowers of the game is unique because really, we're not so worried about that stat line. You can win this award if, you're putting up 6. I mean, Luke Cornett was in the conversation tonight. But Jaylen Brown, he brought an aspect to the game that the Celtics kind of have been lacking this year. He got into the paint. He got aggressive. You look at JB, you look at what he brought tonight. What did you like?
Well, Jaylen Brown, we mentioned it before we came on to the postgame. You said he really set the tone for this game early on. And Jaylen Brown, he's really been up and down this season, the entirety of the way, unfortunately. We can pick on some of his past performances from this past week, but tonight, he had a really solid performance. 9 of 20 out there, 19 points, 8 assists for Jaylen Brown. And that's when he's really affecting this team in a positive way. And we see when Jaylen Brown can play in the way he played tonight, which is aggressive, going to the rim, shooting the ball efficiently. Now, he didn't have a great night from 3, but from everywhere else, if you consider he was 0 of 5 from 3.
Right.
But then you look at the rest of his stat line, he's 9 of 15 from 2. That's super efficient from inside the arc. And that's what we're really honing in on with Jaylen Brown is when he's playing efficiently in that manner, that's when the Celtics can really ramp it up and take over other teams. Because some of the nights in which the Celtics have struggled this year, we've seen Jason Tatum. Oh, the other night, Jason Tatum, 31 points. We lose to the Bulls by 9. But when Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown come to the party, that's when you see a night like tonight, 123 to 98. That's when the Celtics are really running past teams, is when they have their other grade A superstar who can be a top 15 player in himself, Jaylen Brown. When he's coming to the party and he's bringing all that he brings, that's when the party for the Celtics turns up. That's when it turns up because Jaylen Brown, he is a driving force for this team that just brings another level. If the Celtics didn't have Jaylen Brown, they wouldn't be in the best team, or I shouldn't say they wouldn't be in the conversation, but they wouldn't be solidified best team in the league. He's part of what makes them that. They would still be in the conversation, don't get me wrong. But with all the other players they still have. But they're the solidified best team in the league. And Jaylen Brown has a lot to do with that, being the Celtics' second best player and their second all-star. We think about last year, Jaylen Brown, he won finals MVP. If he doesn't perform how he performs in the playoffs and in the finals, who knows what happens? I know the Celtics ran through the playoffs last year, but it's really those little tiny marginal moments that can either make a dominant playoff run or just maybe an average playoff run. Maybe the Celtics don't even win the title because, we let game 3 go in Dallas. All of a sudden it's 2-2 in the series, best of 3. Who knows what happens after that? That's ludicrous thinking to some people, but the margins are really that thin in the NBA. And it can be as simple as, is Jaylen Brown, is he having a great night? And say some of the other players on the Celtics, maybe it's Holiday, White, Porzingis, if they're not showing up to the party, can Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum? That's the second time I almost said Jason Statham on Postgame, the last two Postgames. No, folks, not Jason Statham.
It's
He's awesome
definitely
in himself. But this is another action figure in Jason Tatum the Celtics have. But regardless, those two players are really the catalyst to what drives the entire Celtics team. And these other guys, of course, thrive off of what Brown and Tatum brings to the floor. And if Brown, if he isn't quite at the level in which we expect him to be at or where we know he can be at, that's when we see the Celtics, they can kind of struggle on some other nights if they don't get a monstrous performance out of Peyton Pritchard, if they don't get another performance out of Derek White, Porzingis, Drew Holiday. This team just has a bucket of riches right now for who they can get performances out of.
right.
But on some nights, Derek White, Drew Holiday, they haven't been quite here this year in terms of being up to the level we know they're at. And Porzingis, he missed the first 17 games of the season. And if Peyton Pritchard, if he's not 25-point Pritchard, well, who else are we looking at? It's Jaylen Brown. And when, of course, he's hitting at the level in which he hits at, goes to the rim, he's aggressive and going to the rim. And, of course, he's looking to score and looking to create for others because that's big too. Jaylen Brown has not always looked to create for others in his entire career. And when
Right.
he is, we see 8 assists tonight. He brings everybody along with him, along with his scoring number, 19 points. That's when the Celtics can really be at their best.
It's so weird. All right, how do I phrase this? So I don't look at the stat line for Jaylen Brown. You have to watch the game to know whether or like Jaylen. There's been some times where Jaylen Brown has scored 40 points, and I like the games when he scores 22 points more. And here's why. It's because Jaylen Brown is like the focal point, right? The focal point of this team, right? I feel like his play it trickles down and it has an effect when he's visually like when he's there on defense and he's picking up full court, the team picks up on that. And tonight offensively, he was getting in the paint. He was pounding the ball down into the paint. He was getting into the post. He was picking on those smaller defenders, right? So, that is what makes Jaylen Brown so good and so big time for this Celtics team, Seamus, right? He brings an aspect that really no one else does. And he is this bruiser, this grit and grinder that he can light you up for 40. We've seen it. But these are the games I like from JB. Like it was exactly what I saw tonight. He was getting down low. He was scoring the ball in the paint. You saw other guys pick up on that flow. Right? He was getting down. He was getting in transition. He threw down a couple dunks. Right? It's like Tatum picks up on that, and then you got Porzingis picking up on that, and then Pritchard checks in the game, and he feeds off this energy. I mean, energy shifter is a great nickname for this guy because his energy, Seamus, is just so apparent on the floor. And tonight, that's to me why I looked at the flowers. I'm like, it had to be Jaylen Brown because that's what he brought. And that, you ask me, that's what made him the finals MVP and what makes him so special on this team.
Yeah, and I think you're completely right on the trickle-down effect that he has on the rest of the team because Jaylen Brown, he is typically a player that consistently plays hard almost every single night. And what we
Right.
really see his shift of energy be in is, can he make the right decisions on the floor for himself? There are some nights where we see him be a little bit too gung-ho with the ball in terms of, yeah, I'm going to shoot this outside shot from 30 feet, or I'm going to shoot this mid-range right here. Yet, maybe drive to the rim a little bit more. Maybe dish out
Right.
to your teammates a little bit more. And that's what we really saw out of him tonight. And when he's doing that, I completely agree that it trickles down to the rest of the team because not only is he creating other opportunities for others out on the floor when he's penetrating the paint, making the defense focus in on him, but when he's dishing out to his other teammates such as Derek White, Kristaps Porzingis, Drew Holiday, Peyton Pritchard, all those guys are seeing extra wide open opportunities. And that's really what made the Celtics run so efficiently last year is when Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, when they were collapsing defenses, we saw last year Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. It's not like they were having bad performances, but maybe some nights both of them had 20, 22,
Right.
23 points. But who else did we see have 20 points? Oh, look, Derek White has 20 points. Oh, look, Kristaps Porzingis like tonight. He has 20 points. Drew Holiday, he's putting up 20 points. And that comes from Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, specifically Brown, too, because we know Jason Tatum and what he can do and the performances he can put up on a nightly basis, but it really comes with both of those guys, and specifically Jaylen Brown doing it on a nightly basis. If he's doing that, the effect 1000% radiates to others on the floor. And I love that you brought up that point because that is completely true about Jaylen Brown. Jason Tatum, we know that he is really the primary guy for
Right.
the Boston Celtics. Yet when not Jason Tatum, when Jaylen Brown, the Jays, Jaylen Brown, when Jaylen Brown is the one who is taking part of that role alongside Tatum, that can really cast an effect on everybody else that makes this team so dominant. And really, what we saw a lot last season with this team, and unfortunately, this season, we haven't seen it a whole lot, or at least as much as we've really wanted to. Yet tonight has to be a positive sign for it moving forward because the last two games, really the last three games, we came in here on Sunday with Randy and we talked about, Washington's a nothing game, blah, blah, blah. We won by 14, whatever. But Randy was kind of right in terms of we did play down to our opponent, and look what it resulted in on Thursday. The Chicago Bulls coming to the Garden absolutely whooped the Celtics in the fourth quarter, and that does feel like a little bit of a wake-up moment for the Celtics where they go, look, if we're not actually playing our opponents the way we know how to play them, we're going to lose to good opponents. It's not going to
Right.
be a Washington Wizards every single night, a Detroit Pistons every single night. We're not going to get 11 days of rest and have two games in 11 days and play all these easy opponents. No, if Chicago comes into our place, they're playing with a high pace, they're making 3-point shots, we're not adjusting defensively, they can beat us. And yet tonight we come out onto the floor, the Celtics come out onto the floor, and they have a newfound emphasis on what they need to do right in order to win the game. And part of that does come largely with Jaylen Brown, who I do believe if he's on or he's off, he greatly affects whether they can run past a team or whether they're going to struggle against a team. He has a
Right.
massive effect on that.
Jaylen Brown can have an off night and still his presence and his energy is going to affect the team in a positive way, right? Like Jaylen Brown might be one of the only superstars in the NBA because yes, he is a superstar. In whatever way he's a Finals MVP. The guy's a superstar.
Finals
I th-
MVP, folks. This isn't an Andre
yeah,
Iguodala Finals
yeah, no,
MVP.
no.
Oh,
This
he
is
held LeBron to 40.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
no,
no,
Jaylen
no,
Brown
no.
was the best player in the finals.
Yes, right. And he might be one of the only superstars in the NBA that truly every night does the little things that you ask your role players to do. And that to me is the aspect of Jaylen Brown that makes him so special and kind of puts him in a tier of his own because you don't see many guys take the role and do what Jaylen Brown does. And you ask me, I'm not inside that locker room, right? I'm not, can't say I am, but I don't think he's asked to do it. A lot of the things and the little things he does is instincts based. And we talk about Jason Tatum and how he has this just natural instinct for the game that where he's picking up on, that he can really the game can control and run through his pace. Jaylen Brown's got those similar instincts, but it's for the little things. It's for the minute details. And it really, really showed tonight. It showed in the playoffs and the NBA Finals and the Eastern Conference Finals, right? It showed up big time tonight. And flowers and props go to Jaylen Brown.
I want to add on to that, too. The little things in Jaylen Brown's game and those instincts that he has, I really do believe it comes from playing on teams like the 16-17
Yeah.
Celtics.
Yeah.
Comes from playing on teams like the 17-18 Celtics, where Jaylen Brown, he's minimized to being essentially the 10th or 11th player on the team, especially in 17 or 16-17 with the Isaiah Thomas Celtics. He's a rookie. He's really not in the rotation whatsoever. What does he have to do in order to actually break into the rotation to become an NBA player, an NBA role player? Not forget of being a star.
Right.
Jaylen Brown has gone way past expectations of being a star in this league and being a potential top 15 player in the NBA. But just being a role player when he entered the league, that was not guaranteed with Jaylen
Right.
Brown whatsoever. And what did he have to do? He had to claw and scratch his way up to that status because even looking the next year, 16-17, yes, the Celtics went to the conference finals. Jaylen Brown was a rookie. They relegated him in the rotation behind guys like Gerald Green. Avery Bradley was on that roster. Jay Crowder we all know the rough and tough guys like Kelly Olynyk, Marcus Smart, Isaiah Thomas, of course. That was Al Horford's first year. Anybody remembers Jonas Jerebko on
Yeah,
that team? The
that was a
Celtics.
squad. That was a
The
squad.
Celtics were 18
Amir
and 1.
Johnson.
Yes, the Celtics were 18 and 1 that year when Jonas Jerebko played over 20 minutes. Just a little tidbit for that Celtics team. And of
Little
course, too,
stat for you.
Terry Rozier being a young player. So that team was full of dogs in 16-17. But the next year, we look at that year. In that summer, at one point, before the Celtics traded Jay Crowder and Isaiah Thomas for Kyrie Irving, the summer squad included Marcus Morris, Gordon Hayward, Jay Crowder, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown was the fifth forward on that team, essentially.
Right.
And yes, Jay Crowder, of course, he left the equation, went to the Cavaliers, was traded to the Cavaliers, made Jaylen Brown the fourth forward in that rotation. But looking at that, there was no given. There was no given for Jaylen Brown for him to be even a role player at that point in time because Jason Tatum was there. They had just drafted him third overall. The Celtics just drafted Jason Tatum third overall. Gordon Hayward, they just signed. The Celtics signed to a max extension. The Celtics traded a guard, Avery Bradley, for a forward in Marcus Morris, who had 2 years left on his deal. And Jaylen Brown's looking at it going, there's no guarantee that I'm going to make it on this Celtics squad. And what does he have to do in order to actually make it as not only a role player in this league, but then eventually a star, is doing all the little things, scratching and clawing his way up the rotation and actually earning his spot because we know in the NBA, yes, you can be drafted high, you can be given this awesome contract, 4-year max deal. If you don't earn your minutes on the floor, you're going to sit.
Right.
That's just what it is. People claim, oh, because the team paid this player, they drafted him, he's going to play here. No, you're going to. We've seen many situations around the NBA. If a player doesn't earn his minutes, they're going to be sitting on the bench. And Jaylen Brown, he saw that his first year, his second year in the league, and even his third year at the 18-19 Celtics as well, when he kind of took a dip that year along with Jason Tatum. It was kind of their sophomore slumps, although Jaylen Brown was in his junior NBA season, right? His third year. But with all those teams, Jaylen Brown, nothing was a given, nothing was a guarantee. And he's playing, mind you, too, with all of these other great NBA players, these great role players, and even great starters in the NBA, and even stars. Jaylen Brown, that developed him into where he is today, where we know he's not going to be the primary focus on the Celtics every single night with Jason Tatum on the roster. He can be if he was on another team or if Jason Tatum's out. We've seen that. We saw it against the Miami Heat, if I'm not mistaken. Jason Tatum, did he miss that game? Was it against the Miami Heat? Whatever game Jason Tatum missed last week, 2 weeks ago, Jaylen Brown was the focal point of that game. And we know what he can do with Jason Tatum out of the lineup.
Right.
Yet, when Jason Tatum is in the lineup, he knows that I can take a step back. I know what I can do elsewhere. He's been a role player in this league. He's been relegated behind other players, and he knows his role on this team so well compared to so many other stars in the league where we see other teams. Does this star player know his role? Do these star players mesh together that don't work out? Oh, the star player shipped here. Oh, he signed somewhere else. And that's when dynasties fall apart. Or what star players they think when they team up in a big three or a big two or whatever it is. Oh, we're going to get in here and we're going to form this dynasty, win multiple championships. Well, it doesn't work out because the stars don't know their roles. Jaylen Brown knows his role on the Celtics team, and that's honestly what makes the Celtics team so dangerous, not only this year, but years into the future where we're looking at it going, can we win back-to-back? We already won one last year. Can we win back-to-back? Can we win 3 in 3 years? That would be historic. First time since the Bulls. Can we win 3 in 4 years? Can we win even more after that with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum? That's all on the table for them. Going to be very tough to do, of course. That's still very far out into the future, but the Celtics, they certainly have something special here with Jaylen Brown and, of course, Jason Tatum being added to that equation as well.
Without a doubt.